For more reaction on this story, I'm now joined by Phinius Sebatsane, the founder and CEO of Thusana Foundation, an organization representing the rights of homeless people. Phinius, a very good afternoon to you. Thanks very much for your time. Are these safe spaces the PR exercise that Carlos Mesquita says they are?
Well, I think what we need to kind of investigate in Cape Town, what I've been doing is trying to understand the root of the problem when it comes to homelessness. And I think we need to accept the fact that homelessness is a systemic issue. It is a soil issue, not a seat issue. It is an issue that needs a surgery, not a Band-Aid. And currently, right now, what we're experiencing is safe spaces that are not really holistic when it comes to addressing trauma and drug addiction, because what homeless people need more than throwing money at the problem is rehabilitation. And the approach to homelessness in Cape Town, the efforts of it has always been policing those who are experiencing trauma and being blamed for becoming homeless. So what we're trying to promote from our side is to encourage the city to build holistic safe spaces that do not profit out of people's traumas, but actually address the deep-rooted issues of injustice and inequalities in Cape Town. So we have to go upstream and actually deal with this problem at the root and understand that this is not just a choice of somebody wanting to be homeless, but understand that we live in one of the most unequal cities in the world, and we need to address this issue from a very deep place, and not just provide temporary shelters that hide homeless people and don't rehabilitate and reintegrate the homeless community.
In other words, there's a place for safe spaces. It's a question of how you do it.
Yeah, I think the design of safe spaces need to be holistic. The way a place is designed should not be designed in a way of prison and policing, in a sense. It should be a place where there's more social workers and more psychologists who address the deep root problem. The programs that should be there should be holistic when it comes to addressing the inner, deeper issues of drug addiction and trauma. So the design of the place, the person who's running the place should be informed and trauma-informed about what is happening with the people on the street. I mean, there's an organization called U10 that has been existing for the past 20 years that has been working with homeless people. And they have an amazing program when it comes to providing relief, rehabilitation, and reintegration of our homeless community. And that approach needs to be adopted across the city when it comes to dealing with the root problem. But like I said, currently right now, it's not about ending homelessness, it's about ending seeing homeless people, which the city needs to be challenged in terms of the approach. But we can see right now that actually they are listening, because they realize that the law enforcement approach is not the best approach when it comes to addressing and working with people who are traumatized and living on the street, not by choice, but because we live in a city that is very unequal, and we need to start addressing special injustice in Cape Town as well, which is also feeding into homelessness. If you look at the history of Cape Town, of District 6, of Cape Flats, of Posmo Prison, it's a systemic issue. And like I said, we need to address it at the root and stop addressing it at the branches, because we're going to keep on cutting the branches, but the tree will continue to grow and nothing will change.
Presumably, I mean, organizations like yours and people like you do have these conversations with the city of Cape Town. What has been their response?
The response so far has been open-minded, because like I said, the law enforcement approach does not work. I usually tell people that if you drop a broken glass on the ground and then you pick it up carelessly, it is going to cut you. And that is the problem with law enforcement approach, is that, the law enforcement, respond, the homeless people react, and then they end up in prison. And we're encouraging that law enforcement works together with social workers, so that social workers can be first responders when it comes to dealing with people with mental health problems. So there is internal conversations. There is questions around how the city has been approaching this issue. And like I said, we are at the table with them in terms of building holistic safe spaces that give people dignity, not charity. Because what people don't realize is that charity creates codependency, but dignity helps people to really take charge of their lives and stop the whole profiting out of people's traumas in some of the shelters that we work with. Because to be honest with you, you can't have one social worker or a few social workers working with more than 100 people who are homeless in a safe space. That's not holistic. That is not enough. We need to invest in social development as much as we invest in law enforcement and policing in Cape Town. And that starts with us going upstream, because a lot of times, we pull people from the river, but we forget that we need to go upstream and ask the question, why are people falling into the river in the first place? And put preventative measures that make sure that our people in poor communities have access to psychosocial support in their own communities. But right now in Cape Town, we seem to be investing more in safety and security rather than actually investing in social interventions.
In your experience, do conversations actually take place with the homeless people themselves? In other words, do they get asked what they want?
Yeah, I mean, there's a statement where we are working with that nothing for us without us, so you can't help me without me. So we're trying to make sure that the city sits at the table with those who are experiencing homelessness and those who have experienced homelessness, because there is testimonies and stories of people who came out of the system of being homeless. So people like myself are basically there to hold not only homeless people accountable, but to hold organizations that work with homeless people accountable, because oftentimes the seed is blamed for not growing in a toxic environment, and that needs to change. Because like I said, this is not a failure of an individual, it's a failure of systems of care, and homeless people, a lot of times, they don't have a say, because we have this mentality that beggars should not be choosers, which means whatever we give you, you should accept. I don't believe that. I think they are human beings and they deserve to be treated with dignity. And sometimes when you listen to a homeless person, you realize that what costs you 1,000 rand will actually cost them 100 rand if you give them and empower them to solve the problem that they can solve themselves. So my job is to build a bridge, and make sure that if they go to a police station, the police officers get to listen to them. If they go to the hospital, the nurse gets to listen to them, which doesn't happen all the time. So homeless people's voices are not really heard. And I'm just one of the people who are saying, hey, we need to start listening to these people because they have a solution to their problems. We need to stop with this savior mentality of thinking that we can save homeless people. We need to create safe spaces for homeless people to save themselves. And I think that is the approach that the city must adopt when it comes to rehabilitation and reintegration, is empower the people to do things for them that we're doing for them.
Phinius, Sebatsane, thanks very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.